Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Tier 1 Transfer Podcast. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ronaldo Brown. How are we feeling? You all right?
Dude, absolutely amazing, mate.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
After what happened last night.
Basking in the glory of a 9-0 win. It's your first 9-0 win, isn't it, as a United fan?
No, I weren't born when the other one happened, so it definitely is my
I was
first
there.
one.
So's out you for today, yeah? That's no excuse. You should have been there.
What?
I was 15. Now I feel old. Anyway.
I thought he was going to be older than that. Sorry, mate.
Right, let's move on. Also joining us is a special guest, James Cooper from Sky Sports. James, thanks for coming on the channel again.
Yeah, no problem. I should have been there for the 9-0 against Ipswich, because Ipswich are my team. And I turned it down because I had something else to do, and gladly. But last night was almost perfection, but I wanted them to get 10. You know, I spoke to Simon Peach at halftime. He's a Southampton fan. I said, please, by all means, take our record. But they didn't quite do that. Even though everyone was helping them to try and get towards that 10, which would have been, as I say, perfection for me.
Yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah, Ipswich is your team. Just talking about last night's result, and it sort of comes off the back of a couple of performances that have been, you know, the Sheffield United game and the Arsenal game, not exactly, you know, vintage United performances, a little bit sort of underwhelming, shall we say. What do you make of the title talk and the atmosphere around the club? Do you think there is sort of people buying into the idea that this is a real title challenge, or do you think it's still too soon to say that?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think it's kind of bonus territory, but I think Rio Ferdinand came up with the right phrase. I think the reality check was those two games against Arsenal and against Sheffield United. I think the Arsenal game, I watched 70 minutes and I went to go and get pizza from a collection, and the guy I collected it from was surprised that I wasn't watching the game. And I said, well, I could have been watching the game for the next 2 or 3 hours. No one was going to score there. It was going to be 0-0 all the way. So, you know, I was quite happy getting my pizza rather than watching that for another 20 minutes. And, you know, the Sheffield United game, I thought Sheffield United were excellent. I thought they stuck to their plan. And I thought the problem there was that United didn't. But I think the key problem with all that whole week was, I think, you know, beating Liverpool. It was almost everybody's cup final. It was almost, we've won the Premier League because we've beaten Liverpool. And I think that kind of seeped into the minds of the players. I don't think it ever seeped into the mind of someone like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or his coaching staff, but that's the only reason I can get my head around those performances against Sheffield United and against Arsenal. I think they kind of thought we've arrived before we haven't. And I've always said, look, I think next season is the season. I think after another transfer window, bearing in mind the circumstances might be very difficult next summer, get 2 or 3 players in, change it round a little bit, add some quality. And I think you might see, you know, a team capable of challenging. But, you know, right now, they're still a little bit brittle. I know last night was fantastic, but the fates conspired to allow Manchester United to score 9 goals. They were going to beat Southampton, whatever, I think, last night. But, you know, they did get a few helpers there, you know, and they'll put in a challenge this season, but I think there are better teams, or certainly a better team, probably a better team in Manchester, I'm afraid.
That sort of leads me on to my next question. Yeah, you know, you mentioned that the better team in Manchester, obviously talking about City, and Liverpool have sort of bounced back from their little patchy form, should we say. Do you think we're looking at those two occupying the top 2 positions come May?
I'd like to see progress, and I'd like to see United try and get that second spot. You know, obviously, clearly, I'd love to see Manchester United win a title and show everybody that they're the best club in the land in what's been a strange season. I don't see that happening. I'd love to see them finish second, but I think, you know, the Liverpool game was a big step forward, and I think Ollie kind of explained it really, really well afterwards by saying it was the first time that United did what he wanted them to do as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United, playing the system he wanted, playing the personnel he wanted, rather than kind of making amends for the opposition and trying to come up with a solution to the threats that they posed. It was kind of, right, we are United, we're on home soil, you know, we're going to go and do this. And I think that is the big advantage here and the big step forward. And I think, you know, if United can go on a run, then great. But I just see City just know what they're doing. And, you know, it goes back to all those kind of years ago when Manchester United knew what they were doing when it came to a title race. Not enough of the players right now do, but it doesn't mean that they won't win silverware. You know, an FA Cup might happen. I think a Europa League could very well happen. They'll certainly get, I think, to the latter stages of that competition. So I don't think it's going to be a bleak season. I just don't see a title, because I just think City have got, I mean, Ollie used the phrase mojo. Well, I think City have got their mojo. I think Pep has, and I think they look hungry. They look really well sorted out. And having spoken to kind of Sean Dyche yesterday, I think he's worried that they're going to stamp all over Burnley tonight.
Yeah, fair enough. Realistic, I suppose.
If anything, I hope you end up being wrong.
Yeah, obviously, I agree.
But the January transfer window was just finished and United didn't make any signings and it was fairly quiet, as many would have probably expected. Do you think this means that United will end up splashing the cash anyway in the summer?
I think it's really difficult to kind of predict, and I don't want to kind of put dampeners on some of the enthusiasm that other people have for kind of transfers. And I know United fans would like to see a strengthening. I think there are positions that need to be strengthened. I think Cavani coming in probably lessens perhaps the need for a down the line sort of number 9. I think they can get away with Cavani probably playing another season if they can talk him into another deal, and I think that will probably happen. I think the Pogba situation, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is an interesting one. That would unlock resources potentially to bring players in. But I think what they do need, and you'll know this, you probably spend hours talking about it, amongst yourselves as much as online. They need a centre-back, and I think they probably need the competition at right-back as well, albeit, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is playing well, but I think we've seen the benefit of someone like Telles for Luke Shaw. It was worth spending 13, 14 million pounds on Alex Telles to get the best full-back in the country in Luke Shaw. That was a good bit of business. I think that's the strengthening they'll need to do. But the problem is, it's coming up to a year almost of Manchester United at Old Trafford being empty. We know that there were warning signs last summer and saying, look, we can't spend the sort of money we're going to spend because of the problems with COVID. And I can't see that situation having got any better, especially bearing in mind Manchester United aren't playing Champions League football and not getting the money from playing Champions League football. So I think it's going to be a really interesting market. And I think you saw that, maybe as a kind of warning in this January. A lot of loans, a lot of movement like that, but no big transfers. And I think unless you've got kind of a Roman Abramovich and somebody who's got tons of cash and is willing to spend it, I think people are going to be kind of prudent and careful.
You just mentioned that you would like to see probably someone to back up Aaron Wan-Bissaka, or at least push him a little bit in the same way that Telles has managed to push Shaw's form on. Is there any right-backs in the market that you could see United possibly going for?
No, I really don't know. I mean, I think there's a list, but I think the list is, kind of dominated probably by names outside of the Premier League. I mean, I think, there's no doubting that they've had a look at Kieran Trippier, and it might be that he fits the bill, but I can't see someone like Kieran Trippier coming in perhaps and being understudy to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, bearing in mind his own pedigree kind of internationally. That might change if Wan-Bissaka goes to the European Championships as the number 1 right back for England, I guess. But that's the kind of pedigree that Manchester United are looking at. And I think it's interesting, at this time last year, we would have said perhaps Brandon Williams could fulfill that role. And I think that's been a problem this season, the kind of second season syndrome and his development. And I think that's the one reason why Brandon Williams didn't go out on loan this year. I think Manchester United decided rather than have him wherever they wanted him to go, they were best keeping him in at Carrington and just trying to unlock things a little bit and getting him to kind of bounce on from last season. But I think that is a space that needs filling. And they've got tons of midfielders. And I think, in terms of January, and I said it the other night, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be really pleased that he's kind of trimmed his squad in the way that he wanted to. Goes and gives Jesse some football at West Ham. That's a win-win. It's a win-win for David Moyes, but it's also a win-win for Jesse, and I think also for Manchester United. If he comes back perhaps into the squad a better player. If not, then his transfer value with a year left on his contract is enhanced as well. So that sees a progression. They've got Rojo off the books. They might get Romero off the books. So I think in terms of that and getting football for some of the younger players, I think it was exactly what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer kind of pinpointed January as being. And I think it was a quiet window. It was a fairly boring window and a long and grey and cold and rainy window. But I think in many ways it kind of suited Manchester United.
You mentioned Paul Pogba earlier. Whenever we sit down, we end up talking about Paul Pogba. I mean, from what we've seen from his agent and from other conversations, it looks like he's going to go in the summer. Do you think there's going to be any change there? Can you see any situation where he doesn't leave in the summer?
Well, I hope he doesn't. I think you probably honestly know that I'm going to say that because I think there's a great player in there, and I think we've seen kind of more glimpses and more reassuring glimpses of a Paul Pogba. I think he looks happy playing for Manchester United, bearing in mind it's a Manchester United on the front foot. I understand what you're saying, and I think the agent has said stuff. Isn't shy in kind of representing his players. I think if any of the three of us were a player, you'd want Mino Raiola in your corner because he certainly fights for you and gets the best deal and does it in a fairly uncompromising fashion. It'll be just really interesting. I think it does come down to economics, as things inevitably do with Paul Pogba. I don't see another club paying him what Manchester United are paying him right now. I don't see £100 million transfer from another club to Manchester United for Paul Pogba, even with a year left on his salary. It'll just be interesting. I'd dearly love him to stay because I think it's still a position where Manchester United play better when he plays better. And what we have seen, perhaps in this calendar year in terms of 2021, is that Bruno's played an awful lot of football. He says he's not tired. He says he'll play every game, but we're not seeing the kind of performances, the kind of running that we have seen, albeit I thought he was better last night. But what we have seen is that a team less reliant on him doing that, which I think is great because you can't expect him to be 9 out of 10 for 60, 70 games in a calendar year. And I think Paul Pogba has stepped into the breach. So I'd dearly like to see Paul Pogba because I find it compelling. I think he's a fun person. I don't think he's a bad person at all. And I think we are seeing him do things that, people disagree with me on this, but a couple of the goals he scored, he made look so easy. And that's not an easy thing to do. There aren't many players in world football who can score those sort of goals. And I think, losing that, I know it loses the kind of all the chatter, it loses a lot of the chaos and the rumblings, but it also loses one of the greatest players, I think, potentially in the world.
No, completely agree. And I'd personally, and I think a lot of United fans are the same, would love it if Paul Pogba did stay past the summer.
I mean, you'll know it, Jay. You're seeing him run back and do things that you never did, track back on players, albeit he's not tracking back with the same sort of intensity as someone like Bruno, but he's doing those things. He seems to have a responsibility towards the team, not just thinking, how can I look good or what can I do? I think there is a team spirit here, and I think he's seeing that. So that's why I'd like him to stay at Manchester United, and I'd like him to prove people wrong. And I think going would prove an awful lot of people right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned team spirit, and I know you've been covering United since the Fergie days, and you've seen different moods, different managers, of course, philosophies, different press conferences. I think me and you at the press conference where Louis van Gaal walked out early doors, and you can always pick up whether it's a happy camp, if you will. What's it like at the minute when you're at the press conference? Or I know a lot of it's via Zoom, or when you've sat down with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the players. Do you feel there is a sort of a good team spirit and a sort of a positive vibe, if you will, at Manchester United at the minute?
Yeah, I think it's an awful lot better. And there was one moment that really encouraged me last night, and it wasn't any of the goals. It was towards the end of the game when Dan James came down the left, put a cross in, and didn't quite scoop it out in a way that it got to Anthony Martial. And the camera homed in on Martial, and I thought it would just be the normal shrug or the hands on his hips or whatever. And he actually looked at Dan James and gave him a clap of encouragement. And for me, I'm not Martial's biggest fan. You don't have to encourage me very much to have a go about Anthony Martial. I think there is a good player locked in there somewhere, but I don't think we've seen enough of it. And I think he's done very well out of Manchester United. I've got to say, he took his goals last night fantastically. I was surprised he put those away. But that moment, I think, told me an awful lot about the team spirit there, because I think this time last year, he's not even looking at Dan James. He's just walking back and not looking as though he's happy with the world at all. And I think that was really, really encouraging. And I think certainly, the vibe I'm getting from United is a more together bunch. I think they're learning together. I think last night I spoke to Ollie about them being ruthless, because I think he said the other day that they're a little bit too nice. I think there is that a little bit. But he said they drove themselves on last night against Southampton. They didn't want to stop at 4 or 5. They wanted to try and get into double figures if possible. And I think that shows a lot about their will. I think there's still a little bit of fragility there as well, and that's borne out by those performances against Sheffield United and Arsenal, where, I think they could equally be playing those games now and they wouldn't find a way out of that. And that's a little bit concerning, but I think they are learning. They are making progress. And I think, little steps, like I said, the Liverpool game, I don't think it was as big a step as it was in perhaps their minds, but I think it is coming together. And you talk about that whole kind of Zoom culture and talking with Ollie. It's not easy for him. It's certainly not easy for us. And for the guys in the stadium, sitting there on their laptops when the guys in the mowers come out, simply hearing Ollie at the end of the game isn't easy. But I mean, just before Christmas, just before this latest lockdown, I got into Carrington to have a word with him, and just the difference of sitting opposite someone, human being to human being rather than computer screen to computer screen. I think it was a really lovely interview, because I think he was just delighted to see another human being. I don't think it was my skill at all. I think my mum could have probably got a nice interview out of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer simply because he was delighted to see another human being in the room.
Ronaldo, as you well know, it's Valentine's Day is upon us. And
what's that?
Valentine's Day. Don't get
Nothing
that.
to do with me.
We know you're an old romantic at heart. And what better way to sort of celebrate Valentine's Day and to give your better half something to be happy about than using Manscaped, doing a bit of grooming down below the waist.
Yes.
Around your...
keep it sheen, keep it clean, keep it shaven.
Yeah, keep it clean, keep it sheen, keep it shaving. Manscaped have got an offer on as well. They've got the 3.0 technology. And listen, we want to keep it trim. We want to keep it sort of like you say, keep it clean and keep it sheen for a Valentine's Day treat, not just for your partner, but for you as well, man. It's good to keep it all trimmed down, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Me and you talked about this the other day, and it's like, I'm fairly new to all this, but it's like, you know what? It's the way forward. Got to move with the times.
I think, do you know what? There's many benefits. It's hygienic, it's clean, and it can also make it look deceptive. So, just say, there's many benefits.
I should have used it years ago then, do you know what I mean?
Could work out for you.
Could have done with that.
Could be speaking from experience, who knows. But Manscaped makes that experience much, much easier, trust me.
It does. Also, it's like you say, with the technology, the 3.0 technology, less chance of accidents as well, because we talk about if we don't get the scissors out there.
Yeah, some people get the scissors out.
Getting the scissors out there.
Don't show out that thing, that's very risky.
In a rush.
Razors,
cold. A little bit, you know what, taking a little bit too much off there, and before you know it, your eyes are watering and you're staying in. So yeah, we've got an offer on. We've got a special offer. Check out the link in the description. Manscaped is the best way to look after your balls. They've got the technology. They've got like little packages as well. It comes in all very nice. And
nice,
Valentine's
absolutely
Day,
amazing.
It is an amazing set.
Yeah.
It's the perfect way to sort of give yourself and your other half a little bit of a treat for Valentine's Day. So you get 20% off and free shipping when you check out the link in the description. Exclusive offer we've got for you. So check it out. Me and him will be. We're moving with the times. Look after your balls.
In terms of signings, what have you made of the Edinson Cavani signing, and now do you expect him to be a man to start most games before the end of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people commonly believe that he's probably Manchester United's best number 9. The difficult thing is you're in a situation where if you are going to progress, you don't want to give people chances and say, look, play yourself in as number 9. I think Marcus Rashford would dearly like to be Manchester United's number 9, but I can't see anyone persisting long enough to make that happen. And there's an argument to say that he's been given those chances and perhaps not taken them. Equally, I don't think Anthony Martial gives you the same kind of presence at number 9. Again, I think he'd like to be it. It might be further down the line that Mason Greenwood becomes Manchester United's number 9. I think that's perhaps more likely than even the other two, and I think he will benefit enormously from Edinson Cavani. It's a little bit cliche, this whole thing about big players mentoring little players or younger players being mentored by older players, but there is still a lot of truth in it once you kind of make him understand how English works. I think that's one of the problems initially with Edinson Cavani being this kind of mentor within the camp at Manchester United. His grasp of English at the moment isn't great. We've got them translating. I think Paul Pogba does a bit of translation. Mata and Matic all do translation work to help him. But I think just the habits. And I said to Ollie the other day, and it was a Zoom interview rather than being in the flesh, when you're at school and a teacher tells you to do something, you think, right, well, that's the teacher telling me to do something. And you might go one of two ways. You might do it or you might not do it. Generally, in my life, if then my classmate or something was then saying, well, hang on, the teacher's got a point, you want to be doing that, you'd probably listen to your peers more than you would even your teacher. And I think that's the situation that perhaps Ollie finds himself. I think he's been drumming and saying, look, I want you to be predators in the 6-yard box. I want you taking and creating more chances. And I said to him, I think it helps his message that he's suddenly got a number 9 in Edinson Cavani who's doing all the things naturally that Ollie's asking the other strikers from and showing them how to go it. So his importance is massive. And I said it all before. I see him being Manchester United's number 9 next season because, he's got a lot of miles on the clocks. Yes, he's scored an awful lot of goals, but he looks hungry. He looks lean. His habits are all good. And I think he wants to be a real success for Manchester United. And I think, someone made the point last night on the games, imagine Old Trafford being full. Old Trafford would worship Edinson Cavani, and I think you'd see even more from him from that. So, I think it takes the pressure off a window where COVID might dictate that they can't go in for a proper number 9. They can't go in and spend big bucks. I don't think they need to. I think Cavani is that, and I think you've then got resources around it, and someone in Mason Greenwood who perhaps can really learn from somebody like Edinson Cavani.
Definitely, yeah. I agree. That's the sort of the shaming is that as fans we're not able to get there and show him our appreciation.
Imagine that. It's like a Zlatan thing. You know how much you love Zlatan. Well, it's similar. And same sort of stature, but different sort of players. And I think perhaps even more of a Manchester United player in the fact that perhaps he is, albeit he's from a different part of the world. He's like an old English centre forward who'll put himself there. And I think I still think watching the games, he's trying to get to grips with the movement of Manchester United and working out where he needs to be. And I think the English thing perhaps lets him down in terms of communicating that. But I think once they do get on that same kind of groove with the balls coming in from left and right, I think you'll see him score a lot of goals. And I think it's been a real success story. And I think the one thing I would say is that I felt a bit sorry for Odion Ighalo not going, because I think he fulfilled his brief, but I don't think he got a good enough farewell. And again, that would have happened if fans had been at Old Trafford, because I think he fulfilled a need when Manchester United needed someone, just to score a couple of goals at an important time to keep everything steady. And I think, people look back on that and think, yeah, it wasn't a Henrik Larsson and it wasn't an Edinson Cavani or even a Zlatan, but I think he deserved more of a goodbye and a thank you than perhaps he's been given.
100%, yeah. We all love Odion Ighalo, and it would have been nice to say
Uncle Ighalo.
Yeah, Uncle Ighalo to say Terra proper.
He's gone, but
I mean, what a guy on social media. My boys love him wearing his suits and stuff like that. I mean, this is someone who takes themselves really, really, seriously, and also took the privilege of playing for Manchester United very seriously. And I think didn't put a foot wrong. And I think, as I say, I'd like to see a little bit more of a public thank you, but we won't get that now. And it's a shame that game against Southampton wasn't a week earlier, because I think, you've seen a situation where at 9 goals up, they might have put someone like Odion Ighalo on just to say thanks ever so much.
That would have been the icing on the cake if he'd have come on, made it 10. You'd have been happy, James.
Yeah, you know how much I'd like it.
No, he's going to be missed, but I'm going to move on to a player that's getting a lot of United fans excited, and that's the youngster Amad Diallo, especially after his performance against Liverpool's under-23s.
Even though the other bloke scored 4 goals, who cares?
Yeah, even poor Hugo,
here you go.
Scores 4 goals and everyone's talking about Diallo.
Doesn't quite have the same expectation. But do you expect Ollie to use Amad Diallo much before the season closes?
Yeah, I think he will. I think he's being rather coy about it. I think that Liverpool game was an important game. I said to him, look, the fact you're putting him in the under-23s, when I spoke to him last week, does that mean that we're going to have to wait even longer? And he said, no, I don't want him kind of sitting on a bench. I want him learning about Manchester United, and I want him learning about a game like Liverpool. You know how much Ollie likes beating Liverpool. And I think that was part of it, ingraining that on him. And I watched the kind of highlights of it, and I like the way he moves. I like he's predominantly a left-footed player coming on the right, but some of his movement, some of his body movement, his balance, looks excellent. I know they're a little bit worried about kind of the rough and tumble of the Premier League and bigger players intimidating him, but I think, he'll have protection on the pitch. He'll have people looking out for him. And I think, he could be really, really special. I think it's important not to kind of heap too much pressure on him. But from what I can see in the way he goes about things, and when you think the penalty was a Panenka, bearing in mind he's a teenager, he's playing for Manchester United for the first time, albeit the under-23s, he decides to slot one down the middle to make it 6 against Liverpool. I don't think he suffers from any confidence problems, which is exactly what Manchester United fans want to see. And it's exactly what is demanded, perhaps, to a player that plays wide for Manchester United. You've seen it, some of the most arrogant wingers, full of self-belief. You look at, likes of Cristiano Ronaldo. You look at Kanchelskis or Giggs. These guys didn't suffer any kind of belief. They weren't the biggest people in the world, although Cristiano ballooned to become, Mr. Six-Pack, straight out of the blocks, much like Diallo. I don't think they're suffering from belief. So I think we'll see him over the coming weeks. And I kind of got the suggestion the other week that mid-February to perhaps late February, you'll see him in the squad and that they're going to work out when they want to plunge him in. And I think it's really exciting because, the way I see it, if Diallo's a success, then, Ollie mentioned it last night, that right wing berth is still a little bit of a problem. Mason isn't a right winger. I've got him down as a centre forward, but he can play there. And he can play on the left and he can play number 10. But, an out-and-out winger and someone who can create like this, I think is really important. It probably mean that they wouldn't be held to ransom so much on someone like Jadon Sancho. And I think that boat might have sailed if Diallo's a success.
Hopefully, yeah. Certainly getting everyone excited. And what better way to do it than to help beat the Scousers?
It's not a bad first thing to do, is it, really?
No, at any level.
No, he looks good. He's one of those players who you look at the highlights tape and think, wow, he's not played very much. He looks very good. And then you see him play, and see the highlights from the weekend, and you think, yeah, he has got something, and he certainly isn't, slowing coming forward, and he wants to try things. And I think that's exciting because I think, Manchester United, part of their DNA, and I know that's a kind of Ollie Manchester United era cliche. The DNA is wide players who want to make a mockery of the fullback, and I don't think we've had enough of those just in recent years.
100%. You keep mentioning about the fans, and the fans would have liked to said goodbye to Odeon or to been there. When do you think we can expect to see fans back inside Old Trafford? Are we looking? Do you think perhaps next season might be the first time? I know, I expect you to have all the answers, but just from your point of view, where do you think that may be?
It's hard because I think it's a head and heart thing. I think the heart would say, look, we'd love to see them as soon as possible. I don't know is the honest answer. An informed guess if things go the right way. And none of us are experts on this, not even the government by the looks of things, but I won't get into politics, is I think, we will hopefully, with a fair wind, see, I think, some fans at the start of next season. But I was chatting to somebody at Old Trafford the other day and saying, it's going to be, isn't it, 20 or 30,000 perhaps at Old Trafford at the most initially, and then see how that works and then go from there. And I think the difficult thing here is, as so many Manchester United fans will be desperate to get inside that stadium. Being the 30,000 or 20,000 that are lucky to get in is one thing. Being the perhaps 46,000 or 56,000 that can't get in is going to be a real difficult problem to manage. And I think although they have got plans, that's going to be the story of the next kind of era of football with fans coming back. Not so much the fans that get the tickets as the ones that will miss out, because they will. I don't see a situation whereby next season starts and suddenly we've got 76,000 inside Old Trafford. It just won't happen.
No, I agree. I think there's going to be some fireworks in more ways than one when they have to make that decision in the ballots.
It's not easy, is it? I mean, everyone's got an argument. And I know the number of people who say to them, I'm the biggest Manchester United fan in the world. If that was true, you wouldn't be able to move for people at Old Trafford. There'd be sort of 70 million rather than 76,000. But it's going to be a problem. Politically, it's going to be difficult to kind of say, why you deserve to be in and why you don't. And the number of people who say I've been there for 60, 70 years and never missed a game. Well, some of those people are going to be disappointed. That's the brutality of this situation.
You have to do a bit like X Factor.
No.
You make your little video or you put an audition.
It's definitely going to be controversial.
You know what I mean? Make your case.
But wouldn't that just be great, though? Wouldn't that be brilliant that people actually have to sing almost their supper? That'd be fantastic. Or do whatever they do, keepy uppies or something like that, or set them some sort of trial, or maybe even some sort of Manchester United trivia test. Like sort of trying to get into the UK and getting sort of citizenship. Well, maybe you do that with 50 questions about Manchester United, but without Googling, and then mark people on that. That would be good, wouldn't it?
I prefer the quiz rather than the keepy uppies. You want to see me playing football? I have no chance. You'll be all right, Ronaldo. Ronaldo will be okay. He'll be straight in there if it's football.
What's the singing voices like? Could you do the singing thing or not?
I've got a decent falsetto. That's okay.
We'll save that for off camera, James. No one wants to hear any of us singing.
No, that's true. But yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I think that they're trying to work out how it's going to be. But there are going to be people disappointed, and there are going to be people with literally golden tickets.
Yeah, I think there's already discussions among certain fan groups and fans about how if there's a process that fans can get involved in, and hopefully we'll keep people updated on that if we hear any more about that. I've had a few chats with people about it, so we'll see what happens with that one.
Yep. But moving on to basically, could you call him man of the moment? He kind of is.
Yeah, I think you could. I think you could go there.
And that's a man that's been in great form. That's been Luke Shaw. Do you think at the moment he's possibly, with the form that he's in, staking a claim as one of the best left backs in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think he is the best left back in the Premier League, and I think he's possibly the best England left back going into the European Championship. Now, I'm really, really pleased for him. I on the same day I saw Ollie just before Christmas, I saw Luke as well, and kind of joked with him that usually he gets pulled out when things are going wrong. He's the guy that his head is on the block talking about either Mourinho not liking him or Louis is not going well. You're down through the years, and there's Luke Shaw trying to put a brave face on a Manchester United performance when he's had managers who've made life more than difficult for him. And I said, look, this is wonderful. Things are going well, and they're letting you talk. And even he could see the irony in it. And I'm delighted. I think, I'm going to sound as though I'm patronising here, but I think he's kind of grown up an awful lot. I think he is somebody who kind of needs the support of his teammates as well. And I think that, again, reflects perhaps more the togetherness at Manchester United. But more than that, you look at the shape of him. You look at the fact that he's, shed a lot of pounds. He's moving really quickly. He wants to play every game. And not only that, you can move really quickly and you can play every game, but then the quality of what you're doing is under sharp focus as well. And the quality coming in is fantastic. He's delighted to be taking set pieces, taking corners and being in the shake-up for free kicks as well. So, I think we're finally seeing the player that everyone thought would come to Manchester United when he first signed, and I'm delighted for him because I think he's a really, really good guy, a really honest guy, and I think, as I say, if you look down the years at all the difficult questions he's had from people like me, I think we're really, really pleased that it's good, because I can remember being in the States, for example, and him on a pre-season tour. I think it was under Louis, being made to train in front of us alone because he wasn't the right shape, and that was embarrassing for him, and it was embarrassing for us. And it was the manager making a point out of a player, and perhaps it was the right thing to do at the time. I don't know, but it was certainly not very nice to see, and not very nice for him to endure. So I think he's earned it through all this hard work, and I'm delighted for Luke Shaw, and I think hopefully Manchester United fans are too. No,
definitely. I think you have to admire his resolve, and you reminded me of some of the things that have been said about him by managers. Jose with I had to do his thinking for him. Louis van Gaal making him obviously train alone or whatever. He has been through a lot, and he's showing the sort of form that we all want to see and know he's got in him as well recently, which is...
Yeah, and I think it's more than that. I quite like the kind of new Luke Shaw 2.0, call it you like, kind of narky side to him. No, he's not afraid to put a little challenge in, an elbow or a knee there, and just say to the guy that's coming towards him, look, I'm Luke Shaw and you've got to deal with me, rather than thinking I'm going to let him get on and do what he needs to do. And I really like that. And I think, that's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants. You remember Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a player, he was a spiky, horrible pain in the neck a lot of the time, and scored some great goals for Manchester United. But there's plenty of defenders who'll tell you that he wasn't afraid of an elbow or a knee, and doing the things that kind of strikers need to do to maybe get an advantage to their players. And I think that's what he's saying he wants more from Manchester United. And I thought what was really interesting just before Christmas is when they played Everton in the Carabao Cup, there was no VAR on that game for some reason. I think it was that VAR comes in at the semi-final stage of the Carabao Cup. And if you go back and look at that performance, Manchester United are knocking at it. They are doing the elbows, they are doing the knees, because they know they can get away with it because VAR is not there. And I thought that was really, really cute. And it wasn't really picked up upon, but that's what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants. He wants people who want to win games and aren't really afraid of what they need to do to win those games, bearing in mind we're talking about the letter of the law here. We're not talking about breaking rules and breaking people's legs. But I think we are talking about a Manchester United side that should show what it can do and isn't afraid to outmuscle the opponents. And that's what the Everton one showed me. And I think the fact he's talking about it now, about the players not being so nice, you want to see the Luke Shaws running someone into touch into the first row of the stands, albeit, hard but fair. You want to see those things from Manchester United, because the great Manchester United sides, the one that beat Ipswich perhaps 9-0, they were doing all those things. Roy Keane was driving that. We were seeing that intimidation. And I think that's probably the next kind of development stage of Manchester United.
Definitely. You touched on it there, just finally, about the sort of having that nasty side. And you mentioned sort of looking back at players like Roy Keane. When me and you've had chats in the past, we've spoken about leaders on the pitch for United, and whether we've got enough leaders. And you can argue that Bruno Fernandes is a type of leader, or maybe even Marcus for the things he does, not just on the pitch but off them as well. Do you think there are leaders there at United? Or we've been linked with a couple of players. We've been linked with Sergio Ramos again. I don't know how realistic that one is. Or even Dale Upamecano. I know he's a lot younger, but someone who can lead at the back. Do you think we have those leaders in the squad, or do you think those might be signings that we have to bring in to help that?
Yeah, I think there are leaders emerging, and I think I talked about the kind of English language thing with Cavani. I think once he learns the tools of English language, I think he could predominantly be a leader, certainly in that kind of last third of the pitch. I think I've talked about it before about kind of Harry Maguire being a round peg in a square hole in terms of being a leader. I think he can do it. I don't think it's his strength, and I think what we've seen is Bruno emerge perhaps as a different leader. I got the sense kind of at the start of this season, the tail end of last season, is that people were getting not sick of what he was doing, but he was demanding more than the players could probably deliver, simply because they were perhaps on their knees, bearing in mind the amount of games they've played. I think he's tempered that a little bit. I think the players understand now that his demands come from the right place, because he wants Manchester United to win things, and he wants to win things with Manchester United. And I think if it was down to me, I'd give him the armband right now and say, look, Bruno, you are the captain, you are the leader, get on with it. I don't think that'll happen, because I don't think you probably run the risk of taking an armband away from Harry Maguire and the loss of face, if you like. And whether he wants that or not, if you're captain of Manchester United, it's a proud thing to be. So I think those leaders are emerging. I think there's still development work that needs to be done, but I think there are little improvement. Last night you look at Fred. No one would have said that Fred was going to be a Manchester United first team player. He's become that. He's become the go-to person in the midfield for in front of the defence for those big games. Likewise, Scott McTominay, people kind of lamenting the fact against Arsenal that he had a bad tummy. He comes in last night and puts his stamp and mark on that game, and that finish was absolutely extraordinary from a guy that doesn't score many goals, but when he does, scores beauties for Manchester United. And I think across the team, compared to what it was last season, there are massive developmental progress there. All the way from the back, all the way to the forwards. David De Gea again playing some of his best football because he's under challenge from Henderson. Wan-Bissaka and Shaw, their best football. I still think the key area is who you're going to play with Harry Maguire, because I don't see Victor Lindelof being the long-term solution. Eric Bailly surprised me in the sense of the quality of some of his performances this season, but again, slightly fragile injury-wise. Axel Tuanzebe, I don't know if it's going to happen for him or not. I think, most Manchester United fans would like to see it happen for him because of the pedigree of the player, the fact that he won the Jimmy Murphy Award and has come through the system and done really, really well. But it might be too much of a bigger ask to get him to play that. And I think it's more than likely that United will sign someone who will become the first choice centre-back partner to Harry Maguire. And then, you look at the guys up front, they're not scoring as many goals as they were last season in terms of Martial and Rashford. But I think they're embracing that kind of team spirit. Likewise, Mason Greenwood, a lot of quality there, not as many goals, but Manchester United are now scoring all over the pitch. That was the most wonderful thing from last night. 9 goals, 8 different goal scorers. And as I say, I'm not the biggest fan of Martial, but the way he took his goals probably bodes well for the rest of the season in terms of what he'll come up with as a tally. And just throw Cavani into that and Pogba not even playing last night. There were an awful lot of positives. So I don't see this being a squad or a side that will win the title. I hope they prove me wrong, but I do see it as a side that will challenge for the title and perhaps challenge more seriously next season with a couple more components from the summer.
Might have to wait till next season now, Ronaldo. Not too bad, though.
It's 21. It's meant to be.
It's not a bad wait, though, is it?
No, listen,
this time
I didn't think
year, you'd have probably taken, can we win it in 5 years' time? And I'm saying it might be a year's time or sort of 15 months.
Yeah, true. 100%. When we spoke in the summer, I don't think we were saying, next time we speak around January, we'll be, challenging at the top of the table. So,
he deserves an awful lot of credit, and I think, and I think United are more relaxed, partly because I think Ollie's more relaxed. I think he's kind of more comfortable with being Manchester United manager, partly perhaps because things are going well, but I think he's comfortable in his own skin. I think he's got himself mentally around the fact that he is manager of the football club that he dreamed to be manager of, and I think now it's part and parcel of his day-to-day life, and I think that's why we're seeing improvements in the side. And I think the coaching guys are developing as well, and I think throwing kind of Darren Fletcher into the mix has been an important thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see Fletcher involved with the first team as a coach, and at the moment it certainly seems to be having a positive effect. James, it's been great chatting to you. I really enjoyed that, and we'll be following you and your interviews with Ollie and the press conferences, and hopefully we'll keep this little bit of momentum we've got going towards the end of the season.
No, lovely to see you guys. Jay, have a good rest of the season. I'm sure we'll speak before then. Ronaldo, lovely to see you, and thanks. It's been fun as well.
So there you have it. Thanks to James Cooper from Sky Sports for coming on the channel. Good stuff, that, wasn't it? Good chat.
Absolutely brilliant. I love that guy.
I do.
Don't know about you, but I love that guy.
I love that guy, man. So, like what he said as well about Diallo, he's buying into it as well, isn't he? Exciting, and we could see a debut this month.
Yeah, he seems to be quite confident that we will see Diallo sooner rather than later, and he thinks he's going to be very special for us.
What do you reckon?
I think he looks like he does have that it factor.
Got the it factor.
He has something a little bit different about him. I don't want to be too extreme.
Right, okay.
But he looked very Messi-esque.
That's not extreme in the slightest. You've heard it here from Ronaldo.
So,
knows his stuff. We've got the next Lionel Messi. Ballon d'Or this season or next season?
It doesn't matter when, but he's going to end up with 7.
He's going to 7 Ballon d'Ors, and he's the next Lionel Messi. So Ronaldo's playing his cards close to his chest. But as always, mate, I don't need to tell you where to check out James Cooper. You know where you'll find him. You know where to find him as well. He's all over socials. What is it? Ronaldo_Brown93?
93, and I was born quite a little bit after that, actually. It's Ronaldo Brown _98.
98, sorry.
Catch me on there for all the most
amazing... I think I got you mixed up with Joe Smith with his
tweets in the way.
93. Yeah, go and check him out. He's always on our socials.
To be fair, me and Joe do look alike.
You do? It's that hair. Yeah. The hair and the beard.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't tell you apart. I'm always getting you mixed up. So go and check him out. If you're not subscribing, make sure you are subscribing to the channel. We've got loads of good content coming up. We'll have more Tier 1 podcasts where we bring in the top journalists and have a chat with us. We'll also have all the matchday content, the watch-alongs, the previews, the fan cams, all that good stuff as well. Check out the member section where we've got even extra content and some giveaways as well. That's been Ronaldo. I've been Jay. This has been the Tier 1 Transfer Podcast. Thanks for watching.